It's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. I'm keeping my voice down a little bit because it's already 11:30. People are sleeping at my house, and also I'm really tired. I meant to record this earlier. I finished this movie probably like half an hour ago, but I got kind of distracted. So I have notes, but because I'm a bit tired, I don't think I'm gonna read all of them. I think I'll just talk about scenes that um, stood out to me or I had opinions on, and just kind of my general thoughts on this. Um, this movie's sad. It didn't feel sad at first. I feel like I went through like a whole roller coaster of emotions with this movie, but then it kind of felt like it was getting more. It kind of feels like it has like a bit of a sad overtone throughout the whole thing, because the main character, her name is Nozumi. She's a blow up doll, and she ends up becoming sentient. So it's like during the day she's able to, and like basically human and stuff, where she can like walk around and everything. Where it's like during the day she's able to like walk around and do things because her owner is, I mean, she still is a blow up doll. She still has to like return home and stuff, but her owner's like working during the day, so she's able to go and do whatever she wants. And that's like basically the whole movie, pretty much, is this doll that, she's never been alive before and doesn't know anything about like humans and stuff. And she's just kind of discovering herself, and it's one of those movies about like a non-human character. It's kind of like this with like movies about robots as well. Or I guess you could say this with also really like any like sort of fished out of water non-human characters and stuff, where they kind of discover of like what it means to be human. But I feel like I see these more with like robot characters and stuff, but this isn't one of those where it's like, I mean, someone does fall in love with her, but that, you know how sometimes there's romance movies, kind of like Splash as an example, where there's those type of characters, and a human falls in love with them, and their romance is kind of like the main thing of the story. This isn't one of those. It's, um, as Nozumi, she has a coworker. His name's Junichi, and they work at a video store together, and they end up falling in love. But it's not really about like their romance or anything. It's about her as a person, which I thought was pretty cool actually. And the different people that she meets and ends up befriending. And it's not like the entire movie is sad or anything. It's just I feel like it's that the movie, the and the main character herself are like constantly reminding you, or being reminded of like, oh right, she isn't, like a human person. Like I like that there's like physical things that show she isn't a human either. Like the first time Nozumi touches someone's hand, I think it's the hand of this little girl, because there's like a group of school children that are walking around and stuff. The girl says that Nozumi's hands are cold because, she doesn't have blood inside of her. Or there's a part when she's looking at the ground and she's walking with her coworker, and his shadow looks normal, but hers looks kind of off. Um, like, how people's shadows are just like completely solid. It's like, and completely black. It's like hers isn't, because she's made out of air. It's like when you shine light through something, it kind of looks like that. And she has these sort of like seams that are on her body that she ends up covering with makeup, but it's like she's constantly sort of embarrassed, is how it seemed to me, of being this doll and wanting to blend in and being human, really. Um, but she's also the sort of character where it's like she literally doesn't know what anything is, so she like repeats things that people say, and has the sort of like childlike glee over discovering all of these things for the first time. I like that on her first day of being alive, she doesn't actually go anywhere either. She just decides to play dress up with all of these outfits that are around the house. But then it's interesting because there's a bunch of outfits, and she specifically picks the maid outfit. I think it's because it's the outfit her owner puts her in the most to like run around in. But then she eventually starts buying her own clothes, and she actually has so many cute outfits in this movie. I was really enjoying that like every day it's like a different, like really well put together outfit and everything. Um, oh, and then the other thing with her being a doll as well is she has, because she has to be blown up with air the same way as like an inflatable balloon. She has the little like plug thing, but the placement of the plug is on her belly button, which I thought was kind of interesting because like it kind of reminded me of like it's the same spot where like actual humans have belly buttons and stuff, because it basically functions like the same way for her, is like that's where the air comes in to keep her alive. I'm not trying to compare it directly to like lungs, but I feel like in Nozumi's case it like serves the same purpose as like the tube that like a belly button would be connected to. It was just personally really weird for me seeing the plug every time, because I used to have a feeding tube when I was really little, and when it would be closed, I don't really remember, but just from like pictures of myself that I've seen when I was young, there would be like a little plug thing that would cover over the spot where the feeding tube was, and it looks a lot like the plug that this character has as a doll, so it would like really throw me off of seeing it. And then I remember, oh right, she's a doll, she's supposed to have that. um Let me see what else. And then she also has to kind of come to terms with being a doll as well. Like throughout the movie, it's almost like a mantra in a sense, where she's reminded whenever she goes home to her owner of like, oh right, I'm a blow up doll. I'm used, for sexual purposes and stuff. And later, poor thing, she finds out her name isn't even unique to her either. It's like her owner's ex girlfriend's name, and basically the owner um had like a human girlfriend, and I guess something happened with the girlfriend, and now he's sort of using the dolls as like a replacement. I thought it was just like a replacement for human companionship, which I feel like it's partially that, because when the owner, I kept waiting throughout the movie to see like, is the owner gonna find out that the doll is actually alive? And when he finally does, he's really disappointed and says like, oh yeah, human relationships are annoying, I want you to go back to basically just not being alive anymore. Like he's really disappointed about it. And it's this thing of like, oh okay, he doesn't want to date humans, he wants to date like these inanimate objects basically, and kind of projecting love onto them rather than like a person that can actually talk back. I didn't think it was going to be that way at first, so I kept thinking like, oh, I wonder when her owner's going to discover that she's alive, and is probably going to be really happy, because like you see at the beginning of the movie, when Nozumi's just a regular doll, her owner talks to her like a real human person, and pushes her around on a wheelchair and dresses her up in all of these outfits and takes her places. So I thought, oh, he's probably going to be really happy finding out, that she turned out to be alive and they could have a relationship together. But nope, it's the exact opposite, and she's so hurt by that. And I thought, oh, that's got to be so hard for her to hear too. And he doesn't kick her out of the house, but she runs away and she doesn't come back, so she doesn't even get to keep any of her stuff, either her clothes or anything. Um, but then she also has moments where she finds other like dolls or things related with being the doll. Like she finds her own box, and it even has the price on it, and realizes that she's like a cheap later made model, not even like a good quality one or anything. And then there's a part in the movie where she gets to meet her creator, like the person that makes all the designs all the dolls and stuff. And they get to talk for a while, and she sees this pile that just has all of these doll parts and like I guess return dolls. I wasn't really sure about that, or why so many people were returning their dolls. I was a little confused by that because the doll designer almost made it sound like other dolls had become sentient and decided to return the factory. But the thing is, the dolls end up getting um, thrown in the garbage because they're made out of some kind of material where they can't be like burned or anything. They have to be specifically thrown out, which does have to deal with like the end of the movie and such. It's almost like foreshadowing in a way. But it was kind of sad of seeing Nozumi looking at this pile of all these dolls. Like, she seems like she's embarrassed with her being a sentient doll and stuff, and wants to be seen as human. So I kept thinking of like, how does she feel of seeing this pile? I mean, deep down she knows that she's a blow up doll, so for her, is it like the same thing as like seeing a pile of like corpses or something? Was something I was kind of wondering about. But the beginning of the movie, I'd say, is definitely happier when she's first discovering about being alive and having this whole secret life that her owner doesn't know about, where she even gets a job in a video store and falls in love with her coworker and rides around on his like, I don't know if it was a scooter or a motorcycle with him, and she wears all these different outfits and gets her makeup done and goes to all of these places. There's this one part of the movie where she just basically takes a day for herself and like takes photos at a mall and buys flowers and goes on a boat ride, and she just looks so happy the whole time. It's really nice. But then it sucks whenever she goes home and just looks completely like dead inside and everything. It's almost like a switch is flipped. And it's not like she goes back to being a non sentient doll. It's not really like a transformation or anything. It kind of seemed that way at first, but then eventually she ends up. I actually really like the transition they do of like Nozumi, being played by like a human person, but then there's parts of the movie where she doesn't completely go back into the doll form, but it's like her body does, but not her head, and it's these really, I think, good transitions between like her as like a human walking around, her with like deflated limbs. There's a part when she deflates in the video store, and her head, is like human, but her body is like really flat and obviously not skin. I thought that was pretty well done. And I thought her coworker was gonna like freak out of seeing like, whoa, this person isn't actually like a human being. Like, what? Like, even a curiosity, a bit of like, whoa, what are you? But no, he immediately goes to get tape and cover where she got cut and put air back into her. Because that's the other thing too. No one in the movie is ever frightened of this main character or even curious about, okay, there's this. I mean, she looks indistinguishable from a human except for the seams that she eventually covers up with makeup. But even the ones that know that she's actually a blow up doll, they're not curious of like, how are you suddenly alive or weirded out or anything. They just treat her like a human being. Well, except for her owner, but everyone else talks to her like a human person and stuff. That was really nice actually. I kept expecting some kind of big scene of at least someone freaking out, but it's also interesting that no one questions it or anything of how she's alive, and even her creator has no idea. But I do like the way Nozumi herself describes it as not like, oh, I'm suddenly alive or something. It's, she always refers to it as she has a heart now. And even the scene when she becomes alive in the first place, there's not really like an explanation for it or anything. It's like we switch to her point of view and she's suddenly able to move around and she's standing, and there's this transition where she's looking at her hand and then the camera moves away and then it moves back to her, and then she's played by a human person and then looks human. At first I thought she like literally became human, but then you see that she has the seams and her shadow's weird. Like there's all of these things that um she's still like a blow up doll. It's just no one's able to notice. Let me look through my notes. And it's to the point where her owner shows up at the video store as, like a customer and isn't able to recognize Nozomi, even though he's been staring at her face for years and everything. But then her boss thinks, like, oh, is this guy, are you cheating on the guy that you're dating, and thinks she's like dating her owner or something. That kind of sucked. There's this old man that Nozomi ends up befriending. He ends up teaching her about poetry. I thought all the scenes of them together was really nice, but then it gets kind of sad where I think he gets really sick. I wasn't sure if he was like actually dying or not, or if he was just sick and unable to leave his home. But she ends up visiting him, and he's talking about how he used to be a substitute teacher. Because there's this thing in the movie where the humans talk to Nozomi about things, and she thinks they're talking about the blow up dolls, and that there's more that are like her that are sentient, or that some of them might actually be dolls. Like she's kind of misunderstanding what they're saying, and also sort of connecting to it in her own way, like the old man talking about being a substitute teacher. And this is like a couple scenes after I think Nozomi finds out she's like basically a replacement for her owner's ex-girlfriends. This idea of like feeling like a substitute, like you're a replacement for someone and not your own person. Or there's a part where she's talking to her coworker, and he's saying this stuff that makes her think that, I can't remember if it's either that he's a blow up doll too, which he's not, he's human, as she ends up finding out later, or that there are other dolls that are like her. She ends up like misunderstanding it, and it never really gets cleared up between the two of them. And then I want to talk about the ending specifically as well, because I wrote a lot about that. I feel like that was the part that made me feel the most emotional. And I know that I did mention, I did say the word foreshadowing earlier. I feel like I shouldn't have, but I feel like I want to get more in depth, more into like the why of the ending. I know I spoil things, with pretty much every one of these, because this is just like giving my thoughts overall about the movie and stuff, which includes the ending. But this movie was really good, and the ending was kind of a lot that I'm gonna say what it is, but I don't really want to spoil it. I want to give I'm just giving like a hey heads up. I'm gonna talk about it right now. So this is the point of like, if you do want to watch this and see and get through the whole movie yourself and not be spoiled by the ending, don't watch the rest of this. Yeah. Okay, I need to talk about it. So, uh, it's kind of a little confusing to me, actually, the ending, where I'd mentioned there's a scene where Nozomi, she ends up getting cut while at work. I think she accidentally cuts herself on something, and she deflates, and her coworker ends up blowing her back up. Well, he does that to her again. He actually asks her, like, hey, can you deflate yourself and I'll blow you up again? And they do it, but they're both naked, and I was kind of confused about that. I didn't know if it was like a way to bring them closer or some kind of like sexual thing, especially because there's people who do have sex with Nozomi once she becomes sentient, and when she looks like a human person and everything. One of those people actually includes her boss, and you know, the sex happens. So people are able, like, she's still able to have sex even in this sort of humanoid form. Um, when she's like a sentient blow up doll and stuff, I mean. So at first I thought, like, why aren't they doing that? But I guess the blowing up is supposed to be more meaningful. Like, she even asks him, like, why do you want me to deflate myself? And he doesn't say. So I was kind of confused by that. But that happens. And then he ends up falling asleep and she decides to return the favor and wants to deflate him and blow him back up the same way. Except she doesn't understand how humans work. I think it's that, but also I don't think she realizes that he's a human because she tries to deflate him like the way that she got cut. So she cuts into him, and of course, he starts bleeding, and she's panicking, and she's like, Where's your plug? And she can't find it. And I think he's still asleep. I think he like wakes up or something after she cuts him, and he can't find the plug because humans don't have a plug. So then she's trying to blow air into him. It kind of also looked like she was kissing him as well, and it's a really awkward scene. It's kind of long too. It just kind of keeps going. It's a little almost uncomfortable to watch where she's trying to blow air into him, but it also sort of looks like I think it's that she's like kissing him at first, and he's awake, and he's making like pain noises, and he keeps bleeding out, and she ends up like kind of covered in his blood, and is trying to, and then she starts panicking and trying to blow air into him, and he's like literally dying underneath her, but she can't realize that, and she's accidentally killing him. I think that's the sad part too. She loved this guy and didn't want to kill him, but she doesn't realize that he's not a doll like her, so she ends up accidentally killing him. And the other thing too is that he seemed like he was awake, like he's making noises, his eyes were moving a bit. I don't think he was like dying in his sleep. But he doesn't, or maybe he was. I wasn't really clear to me. You couldn't really see his face very well. Um, but if he was awake, he's not telling her anything. He's not chewing her out of like, "Whoa, you hurt me" or something, or trying to do anything about his wound. He's just laying there bleeding to death and making these. It's like he's making these pain noises, which made me think that he was a lot awake. Because I don't think you would do that in your sleep. I don't know if people make pain noises in their sleep, if he was like truly asleep, but I'm thinking he must have been, because I feel like most people's reaction would be, you have a big cut on you, would be to try to stop the bleeding or to tell her like, hey, I don't have a plug, you need to help me, I'm hurt. But he doesn't. He just lays there. So I wasn't sure if he was awake or not. um and then she puts his body in a trash bag because she was told earlier in the movie about how the blow up dolls get thrown away, they don't get burned. I guess it means she still might view him as a doll or something. But then it gets kind of sad. I mean, it's already sad, but it gets more sad, where she gets really depressed and throws herself into the trash. And there's this little girl character I forgot to talk about. I thought she was kind of interesting too, because this movie makes a reference to The Little Mermaid early on, where there's this little girl and her dad, and they're at dinner, and the girl is brushing her little doll's hair. Um, it's one of those dolls that has like those eyes that open and close with a fork, and they're talking about The Little Mermaid because they even mention the name Ariel. And it's just kind of like a reference to that, but I'm thinking about the ending of this, and it is basically The Little Mermaid, um, like how the mermaid is too in love to the prince to kill him to save herself, so she ends up choosing to become sea foam, and it kind of made me think of that. I mean, here it's that she did kill her love, but it was an accident. But I think it's more the thing where she kind of turns into sea foam at the end. She lets herself go into the trash and be and deflates herself. Um, but it was just really depressing seeing someone that at the beginning of the movie was so excited to have the opportunity to even be alive at all and to live and do all of these things for the first time, but she's in so much pain of, killing the person that she loves. And she also ends up less happy as the movie goes on, to the point where she meets her creator and just seems kind of depressed, and even asks her, like, oh, was there anything at all that made you happy about being alive? I don't think she verbally responds. I think she just nods. Um, I mean, the thing is, it is kind of like the Little Mermaid, where Nozumi, she has things that she loved, and then she ends up meeting the guy at the video store and falls in love with him. But I think it's like without him, she'd rather just die, it seems. Um, but I think the part that got me a bit emotional, not like crying or anything like that, but I just really felt it, was she has this dying dream as she's laying in the trash, where it's a dream of a birthday party, and she's crying because throughout the movie, I think it's some kind of restaurant. It happens a couple of times, and the lights go out and people start singing happy birthday and bringing a cake, and at first she doesn't know what a birthday is, but she realizes, like, she doesn't have a birthday because she's never technically been born, or born the way a human would, where she would get a birthday, basically, because she was created as a doll. So then she's crying in this dream because she's having the birthday. She gets to experience that. It's like she is human in that sense, in that dream. And then it cuts back to her in the trash, and as she's like in the trash, there's the little girl that shows up again with her doll, and she trades Nozumi. I don't remember when Nozumi, she has this really big ring. I only noticed it towards like the second half of the movie. Maybe she had it the whole time. But she has this really big ring that she wears, and the girl takes it, and the girl gives Nozumi her little doll that she's been carrying around throughout the whole movie, and says it's like a trade. I was actually glad that it happened, because at first I thought, man, this child sees this person that's just laying in the trash, because Nozumi at that point isn't deflated, so anyone that passes by her would just assume, yeah, that's a human woman that's just laying in the trash for some reason. Um, and I thought, man, this child is just gonna steal her ring. That sucks. But no, she trades it for the doll. I mean, Nozumi doesn't give consent to that or anything. She's just kind of laying there. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to have as part of that scene. But yeah, the dying birthday party dream thing, that made me sad, of seeing her so happy, of like, it's finally her birthday and everyone's there to celebrate with her. It kind of reminds me of the movie AI, Artificial Intelligence, which I did a review of. The thing is, I think I have it posted for next year's, like in the schedule of how I put it on YouTube. But I'll say that the main character of that movie, and his desire to become human, and the final scenes of that movie made me think of, I was thinking about that while I was watching this birthday party scene, because it feels kind of similar, of like non-human characters that they just want to, they crave things that I'm trying to word it in like a kind of vague way, because I don't want to really spoil that movie too much by getting into it. Um, they want to be treated by humans, but as humans, but like never will. But it's like craving experiences that for humans would just be like ordinary normal things like birthdays or playing and stuff that mean the world to them, but like and that they won't have those experiences, but to everyone else it's like a completely normal thing. I always find that really interesting with these kind of characters. um I wish I could get more into that comparison so bad, but I don't want to get into specifics of a movie. I haven't um, had my review public on here yet. It's not until I wait. Actually, you know what? Let me check. Let me check. I might have already posted it. I record so many of these. I kind of don't remember. One sec. Okay. So yeah, I thought so. The AI artificial intelligence one that movie reviews, and it's not, if it's not in the movie playlist, it means I didn't do it yet. And the thing is, I already pre-recorded that one, so I can't like come back to this talking point later. But I feel like if you watch the end of that movie, you'll, I think you'll see what I mean. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, the birthday party scene, I think that made me the most sad in the movie, and then and that's like the main character's final thoughts, and then she deflates herself, and that's the last shot in the movie, is her just laying there deflated amongst the garbage. And I find that really sad because I I wasn't really sure if she was the only doll that ended up coming to life. The human characters talking about it made it sound like that wasn't the case, but I wasn't really sure. But assuming that she is, it makes it sad because like her fellow dolls, they're not sentient. They end up in the garbage. That's just kind of how it has to be. But then with Nozumi, she's sentient. She's, I mean, not human, but she is alive. And she, was living a whole life and, didn't have to end up, I mean, I don't think she would die or end up aging, but if she decided to like have whatever her equivalent to dying would be, I don't know, um, she could do that anywhere. She didn't have to be in the garbage like the others. Like, she could have deflated anywhere. But the fact that even with the gift of life, that's where she ends up in the end. And also by her own choice, too. Like, she had a choice, and that's what she ends up choosing, I think makes me sad. And especially because, like I said at the beginning, she wanted so bad. I was gonna say she wanted so badly to live, but no, she was really excited to live, is what I mean to say. And then she loses that interest as the movie goes on. So it ends on a bummer like that. But I thought it was a good movie. Like when I clicked on it on Tubi, I thought, oh, it's a movie about a blow up doll that ends up being alive. That sounds kind of weird, but I'll watch it. But then it ends up being this really nice movie about this doll learning about what it means to be human, and I have a soft spot for those kind of stories, so I thought it was pretty good. And I'm glad that I finished it today too. I was almost going to save it for the following day, in terms of finishing the movie and recording it, but I thought I'll just stay up and finish the movie and do the review, and I'm glad I did. I mean, I didn't get to watch this in one sitting, unfortunately. I kind of had to watch it in bits and pieces throughout the day, but I did watch it within one day, so I was able to remember things and such. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this. Oh, one more thing I want to say. There's like little dandelions. I think that's what they're called. The little dandelion puffs that you blow and stuff. I like that those are in the movie too. You get to see them kind of flowing around at the end, when the main character deflates herself. You get to see them at the beginning too when she comes to life. I guess they might be like symbolic of something, or maybe relate to how Nazumi ends up becoming alive. I wasn't sure, but I did think those being kind of around within the movie were kind of interesting. And the logo for the title, when it ends up popping up in the movie, the title, there's like a breath sound, and it ends up getting blown away, and I thought that was a pretty cool detail as well. I just wanted to mention about that really quick because I'd forgotten. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this. I recommend this movie. I thought it was pretty good. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.